Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, Chapter 17, Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve had arrived the night every monster in Halloween Town had waited 14 long months for. In celebration, the Undead Ensemble played a rousing version of Here Comes Santa Claus, while the two-faced mayor wore a poinsettia hang on. Poinsettia blossom pinned to his suit. I have no idea what the heck that is. Is that like just a wreath of holly or something? Whatever. Conducted. Pinned to his suit. Conducted. For years, he been reelected on the promise of developing the greatest Halloween scares of all time. But this year had been a real challenge with Jack's whole Christmas thing. Still, he felt confident that night would be a legendary success, which he would be sure to remind his constituents of at election time. The crowd energetically cackled in the air seemed different from the holiday eve of the past. This Christmas there were no masks, no dripping blood, no severed heads, except for the one the undersea girl had packed up in a nice black bow for some little girl or boy to open under the tree. While everyone was tapping their feet to the music and speculating about when Jack would make his grand appearance, Sally crept along the low stone wall surrounding the town square with a jug of fog juice clutched to her chest. Oh, how she hoped no one would see her. It would break her heart if Jack found out she was the reason his Christmas was about to become an utter failure. He wouldn't understand it now, but she was doing what was best for him. She reached the fountain and uncorked the jug, then poured the contents into the bubbling green slime. Fortunately, the musical performance distracted everyone from the thick gray fog that oozed out and spilled down the side of the fountain. Back in the center of the square, the mayor waved his hand toward the coffin sleigh, which was parked on the wooden ramp. At his signal, its doors cracked open. Jack appeared from inside with his arms crossed, grinning over his ribs as though he was rising from the dead. He wore the red suit Sally had made for him, along with Santa Claus's stocking cap. The crowd cheered at their holiday king's clever entrance. He'd outdone himself again. Even though she felt his plan was foolhardy, Sally couldn't help smiling. Jack loved to make a grand entrance, even more than the mayor did. Sally slipped into the rear portion of the of the bystanders, nodding along as though she'd been there the entire time. Not far away, thick smoke from the fog juice potion spilled out of the fountain. The fountain was connected underground to the wishing well at the far end of the square, where even more fog poured out. The mayor climbed onto the wooden ramp, which served as the makeshift stage. With his rosy face, he proudly he unfurrowed the speech he had been working on for weeks and turned towards Jack. Think of us as you soar triumphantly through the sky, outshining every star. Jack tipped up his chin, basking in the praise. Your silhouette a dark blot on the moon. The mayor effused, dramatically throwing his hands in the air. You who are pride, you who are glory, you who have frightened billions into an early grave. Jack's rib cage swelled with joy. None other than he, the Pumpkin King, could have achieved this, not only making Christmas his own, but improving it and even giving Sandy Claus a much-deserved rest as part of the bargain. He couldn't wait to hear the delighted laughter of children opening their presents on Christmas morning. Everyone would marvel over the extra special changes he'd implemented this year. A low but thick cloud of fog began to settle into the town square. Fog was nothing new in Halloween Town, so few residents paid it any bother, though it was rising unusually fast. The member of the undead ensemble began to cough. A puff of fog even slipped out of the saxophone, and the sax player grumbled. The mayor held the scroll close and squinted at the writing to see. You who have devastated the souls of the living. The crowd began to take more notice of the fog as it swallowed feet and leg. This wasn't starting to seem unlike normal late evening fog. The cobblestone street had completely disappeared, and fog continued to pour out of the fountain and wishing well at an alarming rate. Oh no, Jack moaned as the fog rose to his chin level. We can't take off in this. The reindeer can't see an inch in front of their noses. The three skeletal reindeer hitched to the coffin sleigh weren't even visible through the thick cloud, other than a faint gleam of their bones in the moonlight. As the other monsters began to murmur, worrisome to themselves, Sally wiped the back of her hand over her forehead. Phew. Her plan had worked. Now her terrifying vision wouldn't come true, and Jack would be safe. One of the vampires wailed. This fog's as thick as jellied brains. The Cyclops interjected. Thicker, cried the vampire. He should know. He'd had jelly brains for dinner just the night before. Jack sank into the driver's seat of his coffin sleigh and rested his wary chin on his hands in dejection. There go all my hopes, my preparation, my precious plans, my glorious dreams. Through the haze, he could barely make out the disappointed faces of the monsters gathered around the sleigh. Through the heard, through he heard the corpse kid say, shruggingly to his mother, "There goes Christmas." Dissocially, cries spread amongst the residents. Somewhere in the haze, Zero barked. At first, Jack couldn't see the ghost dog. He had the misfortune of being the same color as the fog itself. Sadly, Jack shook his hand. Wherever Zero was, it wasn't time for fetch. No, Zero, down, boy. A strange, warm orange glow was cast by an orb of light somewhere in the middle of the fog, catching Jack's attention. He cocked his skull cautiously. As the orb floated closer, he realized it was his ghost dog's pumpkin nose. Dang, give me a second. My, what a brilliant nose you have, Jack observed. And then seeing how the dog's glowing nose lit up the nearby faces of the crowd, which had previously been obstructed, he grew more animated. The better... Oh, hang on. I think I skipped the page. The better to light the way. Ahead of the team, Zero. Yeah, my what a brilliant nose you have. Okay, yeah, okay. Thought the page got stuck together again. The better to light the way to the head of the team, Zero. The dog's ghostly body fluttered with pride as he glided to the front of the harnessed reindeer as Zero's glowing nose grew bright enough to light up the entire crowd. They began to clap thunderously. Christmas was saved. Tragedy averted. Everyone was thrilled except for Sally, who pressed her palms against her face, shaking her head. Oh no, we're off. With a crack of his whip, Jack took his position at the head of the coffin sleigh and spurred on the carnivorous steeds. The reindeer's skull broke into toothy smiles, hooves dancing over the ramp. They followed Zero's nose like a beacon in the darkness. The sleigh launched forward, and Jack exultantly clenched the reins and gave the crowd a heartfelt wave. The monsters shouted and cheered, urging him on. Every last ghost, zombie, and vampire wished they could be in that sleigh with the Pumpkin King. After all, in years past, the majesty of them had been part of the scariest party that tripped into the land of the living to bring out a frightful Halloween. But this year, Jack alone would represent the town of Christmas, Over a year of wrapping boxes and weaving garnets, and to think that at the last moment it almost hadn't happened because of that unlucky fog. Thank goodness for Zero. Wait, Jack, no, Sally yelled as the sleigh pulled itself onto the ramp. The memory of her awful vision clung to her like root. The orange glow of Zero's nose looked eerily familiar to the flames that had engulfed the enchanted Christmas tree in her vision, but Jack couldn't hear her above the cheering crowd, no matter how loudly she yelled. The monsters gasped as the sleigh rose into thin air. Dr. Finkelstein had done it. The reindeer flew. A large barrel at the rear of the coffin sleigh held all their handcrafted gifts for the children. They watched with delight as the sleigh soared higher and higher towards the yellow moon. Jack's deep voice rung out clearly as a bell. Ho, 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 ha, ha, ha. I'm not doing it. I can't not do Jack Skellington's laugh. You're going to have to go see the movie for that. That'll kill my vocals. Once the sleigh was out of sight, and with the glowing light of Zero's nose, the town was plunged back into the thick fog. Now that was innately as something. Excitement was over. Initial excitement was over. The residents began to find their way through the fog to Town Hall, where the Witch Sisters had set up a scoldering cauldron in which they could watch Jack's midnight run. Sally remained alone in the town square, swallowed by her own fog, with her hands clutched to her chest and her chin tapping towards the sky. Goodbye, Jack, my dearest Jack. She'd done her best to prevent him from leaving, but the fog juice hadn't been enough. Oh well, I hope my premonition was wrong. She moved away from the thick fog, but couldn't go to Town Hall to celebrate with the others. The undead ensemble had taken up their usual place by the cemetery gates and were playing a lovely, slow dirge. She ran her soft fingers along the cemetery wall as she listened to the melody. I sense there's something in the wind, she whispered. A raspy meow stole her attention. A scruffy black cat slunk along the top of the wall and jumped down to wind between Sally's ankles. She sighed as she spotted her fears alone as she spoke her fears alone to the cat. Jack didn't listen. Now he's out there somewhere, and I'm afraid of what will happen. Through the lingering fog, the cat trolled alongside the rag doll as she strolled towards the morose music playing in the distance. I wish I could be celebrating with everyone, but I can't stop thinking about my vision. I think tonight is doomed. She leaned against the cemetery's creaky gates and let herself slide down to the scratchy grass. The cat nuzzled her, begging for attention. She stroked it gently, thinking of Jack. Will we ever end up together? She wondered aloud. It seems as though any romance between Jack and her was not meant to be. She'd done as much as she could for him. Like that little fairy she'd once thought of herself as, but he hadn't taken notice of her feelings. I don't get that metaphor. Maybe his heart belonged to another, or maybe it was simply not meant to be for the Pumpkin King in a rag doll. Well, Sally, you have your own book that I've already read, so we know it can happen. She nudged the cat onto her lap, stroking it softly as she listened to the distant sounds of celebration. Her empty chest felt strangely heavy for one that didn't contain a heart. Then the cat sprung out of her lap and ran away, leaving her alone once again. She sighed heavily. No, I think not. That is the end of chapter 17. We'll be picking up chapter 18 in the next episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, as it does help my channel grow. And I'll see all of you in the next episode. Goodbye.